to a special edition of Debate Club presented by Mara Nawfal, where we bring together two elite minds, a global flashpoint, and a format built for clarity, not chaos. No interruptions, just sharp answers, and both sides matter. Tonight's topic, India versus Pakistan after the Kashmir attack. Terror strikes, civilians are dead, and tension is at an all-time high. But can diplomacy save the region? Joining us tonight, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, Director of the Society of Policy Studies in New Delhi, and a towering figure in India's defense and strategic community. He's a veteran of the Indian Navy with over 30 years of service. He has led the country's top defense think tanks and become one of the most respected voices on global security, nuclear policy, and geopolitics. When world leaders want clarity on conflict and strategy, they turn to him. Joining him, Ambassador Dr. Raza Muhammad, one of the sharpest minds behind Pakistan's national security architecture. He is a battle-tested general turned diplomat. He has shaped military doctrine, directed intelligence strategies, and represented Pakistan on the world stage. He doesn't just understand power, he's wielded it in war rooms and in embassies. Thank you for joining us tonight. Round one, are we on the edge or in control? Has the terror attack fundamentally changed the India-Pakistan equation, or is it a still containable issue? Commodore, you're up first.
My sense of the current situation is that, are we in control? From Delhi's perspective, I would say that yes, Delhi is in control and is responding in a measured and calibrated manner, and much would depend on how Pakistan would respond. But for the first part of the question, are we on the edge or in control? My response would be that at this point we are not on the edge. There is potential, yes, but from Delhi's perspective, the situation is under control in terms of the response. And the related question is, has the Pahalgam terror attack fundamentally changed the India-Pakistan equation? Here my response is negative. It has not fundamentally changed the India-Pakistan equation, which goes back to October of 1947, soon after partition, and the whole question of contested territoriality over the composite state of Jammu and Kashmir has been the fundamental issue for India and Pakistan. And this particular manifestation of the terror attack is a continuation of what I, as a security analyst, would describe as a proxy war that's been going on for a very long time, for many decades. And India has been dealing with it in its own manner. And this also links up with what happened in 1999, when we had the Kargil War, as we call it, when much the same kind of pattern was at play. It happened again when then US President Mr. Bill Clinton was visiting in early 2000. And I think this is the nature of the challenge for India. How does it deal with this kind of terrorism and what India sees as the support that this kind of terrorism is receiving from across the border? And it's often described as state-sponsored terrorism. And even in the current case, it is the Indian determination that the group that carried out this heinous attack, as Prime Minister Modi described it, has received support from across the border, and that the perpetrators and their handlers will be.
First of all, what is the Pakistan stance on this issue? What has happened presently? It is not for the first time. It has been happening before also, and every time it was proven that blames which were put on Pakistan were false, right from Mumbai And you know it that Davidson wrote a book on that, and Samjhota Express, again, it was internal inquiry, and it ultimately proved that it was wrongly blamed on Pakistan. So this is Pakistan's stance, is one of the false flag operation, which is aimed at two, three things. Number one, at diverting the attention of the international community from internal issues of the India, the atrocities which are being committed in Kashmir and on Sikhs and other people within Indian country. Number two, the timings. Why should Pakistan be choosing a time when Mr. President Clinton is visiting, or Mr. J.D. Vance is visiting India, or Indian Prime Minister is visiting the Saudi Arabia? Why should Pakistan be choosing a time to get all the blame? So it is not the first time. Now, coming over to the three parts of your question, are we on the edge? I don't think we are on the edge, because if Pakistan and India go to war, it is not going to be simple. It is going to be very complicated, very devastating. Pakistan is low on the conventional preparedness, because India has got lots of weapons now. India has the support of America and Western side. So Pakistan's conventional threshold is lower, which means that nuclear threshold will come very early. So I think it is going to be a very costly war. If India decides to go to war, Pakistan doesn't have to. Pakistan is not looking to war. Pakistan is fully prepared to actually answer any such adventure. Fundamentally changed? No. Slightly changed, because since long India is not in contact with Pakistan. The diplomatic missions are downgraded already. There's no trade going on. And the opening of the border is cosmetic. It is only for the tourism and religious tourism, etc. No economic activity is going on. And India is targeting Pakistan since long, demonizing Pakistan since long. So no change. Is it a containable crisis? Yet it is a containable crisis. It needs good leadership to contain the crisis, resolve the issue, sit together and talk first. Even during the height of the Cold War, Russia and America, Warsaw and NATO kept talking to each other and signed multiple treaties. So the answer is talk and resolve. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commodore, your response?
I'd like to pick up on this question of timing. Why now? And it has been suggested that when this happened in the past, when then US President Bill Clinton was visiting India, there was a major terror attack, and this is empirically part of the historical record. We've had a similar experience now with the US Vice President, Mr. Vance, being in India. And yes, Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia. So my interpretation about why now, why then when Mr. Clinton was in India, is for those groups or those constituencies that want to draw attention to Kashmir as an issue, and also project that the India-Pakistan tension is something that needs international attention and perhaps even mediation. So that's the way I would frame the reason as to why now, the timing issue.
Thank you, sir. Next question, round two. This for the ambassador. Treaty or trigger? India suspended the water treaties. Was this a signal of strength or a new front of hybrid warfare? Ambassador, you're first.
Thank you so much, Miss. Actually, the Indus Water Treaty is not a treaty. Indus Water Treaty is not a treaty between two countries only. World Bank is a guarantor, and according to the terms and conditions, according to the terms and conditions of the treaty, no country can unilaterally abrogate this. It has to be done bilaterally with consent and with the agreement and support of the World Bank. So first of all, it is a action which is illegal. And when it comes to water, upper riparian, lower riparian, international law is very, very clear on this, that water cannot be stopped. Now, if it comes to stopping of the water, stopping 5 rivers is not a question of closing a tap. It is not that to turn off the tap and turn on the tap. It is 5 rivers flowing downwards, and if you want to stop the water, it is going to take perhaps decades and thousands of billions of dollars. So it is not going to happen like that. But if it does happen, it has been declared as an act of war by Pakistan, and Pakistan is going to respond to it with its own choice of reacting or retaliating the way it wants to. Now, coming over to the other issues, like we also have the example of River Nile. There are so many countries which have the upper and lower riparian relationship. They have the tensions going on there. In case of Pakistan and India, we fought 2 to 3 wars after that, but it was never stopped or abrogated. So I think it is not a logical step, and it will not work well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador?
Okay, the way in which this question has been framed is that, was this a signal of strength or a dangerous new front in terms of hybrid warfare? I'd like to suggest that this is a signal of considerable resolve on the Indian part, because after the Pahalgam terror attack, the Indian government, led by Prime Minister Modi, had a very detailed kind of deliberation about how to respond. And as an analyst, as someone who has been looking at the India-Pakistan relationship for almost 3 to 4 decades, I would say that this time around, the Indian government had projected or conveyed a very, very steely resolve in terms of responding to the Pahalgam terror attack. And yes, using the Indus Water Treaty as one of the leverages does represent a new point in terms of how India proposes to now impose what it believes are penalties on Pakistan as a state for supporting the kind of terror activity that we have seen. Now, I don't want to split hair, but in terms of the use of phrase, India has been very precise and has suggested that the treaty is being held in abeyance. Much will depend on how Pakistan decides to respond, and we will have to see as to what exactly the interpretation would be in terms of the action as far as the water is concerned. But the symbolism, to me as an analyst, again, is significant, that India's determination to up the ante in terms of non-military responses that it has, have now included the Indus Water Treaty as one of the, and I repeat the word again, leverages that India has in relation to its dealing with Pakistan. I agree with what my Pakistani counterpart had said in terms of the origin of the treaty and the fact that the World Bank is also a guarantor. All that is part of the record. But at this point, I think, yes, it is, as I said, a reflection of how seriously the Indian government is treating the Pahalgam terror attack. And they are looking at the range of options that they have, which, as I said, apart from the diplomatic and the economic and the military, the water card, as it were, has also been now brought into the table. And we will have to see how Pakistan decides to respond to this particular moment.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, your response.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to again reiterate my first point. This is not for the first time that a false flag operation has happened, and it is being blamed on Pakistan. And very well choreographed actions are being taken. Attack happens at 3 o'clock, and after 5 minutes, Pakistan is blamed. One needs proofs, actually. Pakistan, whenever it blames some country, it brings the proofs together and shows it to the world that these are the proofs. In case of Pahalgam, those people who were projected to be dead, they are coming on the social media and saying that we are not dead. Now, coming over to the Indus Water Treaty, the Commodore is right that it is an international treaty. It is not bilateral. Pakistan has also exercised the options on similar agreement and other bilateral agreement to hold these in abeyance. I don't think it is a projection of strength. It is a reaction which has been actually showing a weakness of India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Question, round 3, for the Commodore. Is diplomacy dead? Are track 2 back channels and quiet diplomacy still in play, or have both nations retreated into a hardened position? Sir,
As
you're
far
up
as
first.
India and Pakistan are concerned, after the 2019 terror attack, which is understood in this part of the world as the Pulwama attack and the Balakot response by India, there has been very little substantive track 2 interaction between the two countries. And as someone who has been associated with track 2 for a fairly long period, I would say that box number 1, there is very little track 2 activity going on bilaterally between India and Pakistan. And the related observation is that given the nature of the Pahalgam attack and the kind of anger and anguish it has generated in India, and also there is an embedded communal or religious angle wherein many of the victims were identified on the basis of their religion and then they were shot dead in cold blood, has also added to what I would call as the outrage in India. Given all these factors, my own observation is that track 2 is not going to be particularly effective at this point in time. And as far as the track 1 or the official diplomacy is concerned, I think this has been pointed out that India and Pakistan, after the 2019 experience, have reduced the level of their diplomatic engagement, and the fact that they are not represented at ambassador level is reflective of the current diplomatic posture of both countries. And most recently now, after Pahalgam, the defense attaches and related staff in both the high commissions have also been withdrawn. So as a result, I think on the bilateral, there is not much to talk about. But I think for India, its own diplomatic profile in the regional and global context is credible, and India's own highlighting of terrorism from every major platform globally, regionally, has been a consistent feature of Prime Minister Modi's own leadership over the last 10 years plus. And I would make bold to suggest that the global community is empathetic to India's position about this very, very complex challenge that it is trying to address. That is, this form of terrorism, which has got its support from certain constituencies within Pakistan. Now, this is not new. It goes back by many decades, from the early 90s to where we are now. And as I said, one doesn't want to cite books and journal articles on the subject, but this is the challenge for India at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador,
Thank you so much.
is diplomacy dead?
Yes, I've read the question. I'm sorry I didn't have the questions earlier, so responding. First of all, the track 2. Track 2, I have participated in a few rounds of the track 2. They are happening, but they are happening at the level and at the efficacy which is not that good. But coming over to the Pakistan's position, Pakistan has been offering olive branch, and Pakistan has been seeking the Indian response to get to the negotiating table, talk to each other, and resolve the issue. But every time India, with one excuse or the other, shuns it away. The important thing is that India is riding a tide of arrogance because of two reasons. Number one, Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, has populism supporting him at home. Number two, because of the Indian relevance in containment of China, India has become the strategic partner of United States, and it has been declared as the net security provider in the Asia Pacific or Indo-Pacific region. Because of these two factors, India is not responding to any overtures for talking to each other or diplomatic channels. India has downgraded the presence, yes, since long, and now it has been further downgraded. Uh, but I think Indian relevance and to the international objectives or international contestation makes them too arrogant to respond positively. I always give example of the Cold War. During the height of the Cold War, they kept talking to each other and negotiated the STRAT and other treaties as well. So why can't India and Pakistan talk to each other? So I think there is a possibility that the processes could be revived, and it could be revived with the help of the international institutions also. As far as the terrorism is concerned, Pakistan is itself the biggest victim of the terrorism, and in past about 40 years, we have lost hundreds of thousands of people and billions of dollars property and other losses. Only within this year, in few months, we have lost hundreds of people because of the terrorist attacks. And latest was the train hijacking, in which the people were targeted, and they were also targeted by the identification of ethnicity also. And Pakistan has given examples, proves that where were these being controlled from. So coming back to the diplomacy is dead. Currently, it appears to be dead or on the verge of being dead, but it can be revived only if India wants to. Pakistan is always willing to talk and negotiate and resolve all the issues bilaterally. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I make a response, Jess?
Yes, Commander, you're up next.
We got into this dialogue debate, the frame of reference being that it would be constructive and that there would be some kind of value addition to those who tune in to the show. And it's in that spirit that I want to respond to what my Pakistani panelist has just said. I picked up the phrase olive branch, that Pakistan has always held out the olive branch. I wish that were true because, and I would request the former defense secretary, who's himself a retired general of the Pakistani army, to help me understand this. Just about 10 days ago, the Pakistani army chief gave an absolutely vitriolic speech. It was toxic in its virulence, and the way he referred to the Hindus of India. I don't know that one could describe this as an olive branch. And within a week to 10 days after that speech, we had the Pahalgam. To me, and I've written about this, I've said this on television channels, I interpreted that as a dog whistle to these terror groups that are waiting for some kind of a tacit endorsement to their heinous activities, their murderous activities. So I'm really finding it difficult to accept that this is an olive branch, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, next question. I'm moving up the order a little bit, but terror group or proxies? Do these groups still operate under state backing, or are they rogue groups that are beyond the government's control? Ambassador, you first.
Yes, to my understanding, it is since long that Pakistan has decided to actually control all such groups, and Pakistan has taken actions. There are people who are in jail, the fundings are seized, there are no training camps in Pakistan, and nothing like that which is happening here in Pakistan. It's been a long time, and Pakistan is not at all, the Pakistani government is not at all sponsoring or abetting this terrorism inside India. Pakistan is itself victim of terrorism. Pakistan understands it well. What is the cost of doing this? Also, since long, and as the Commodore was saying, since the Pulwama incidents, the LOC ceasefire is holding on, and it is with a mutual consent of both the sides that it is holding on, and Pakistan has not even once violated that ceasefire. When it comes to the groups or jihadis or whatever you may call them, Pakistan is not using them since long because Pakistan wants peace. As far as the olive branch, what Commodore was saying, if you remember, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, last Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, and many other people offered these olive branch multiple times. What the Commodore is referring to, the speech of the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, it is not related to some bad remarks or some kind of negative remarks on the Hindus of India. His words were that if we could live in peace and harmony, we could have lived together. It is because of the acts of uh, the majority of that time, that is the Hindus, against the minority Muslims, that Pakistan was created, and people of India of that time demanded, the Muslims of India of that time demanded a separate state where they could live freely and could exercise their rights and religious rights and social rights comfortably. Being minority there, they were being suppressed and not taken as equal partners. That is how the Pakistan was created. The remarks was not meant to kind of degrade the religion or the Hindu people. We respect all the religions. Hinduism is a great religion, and they have all the right to practice it the way they want. Pakistan was created in the name of Islam only so that we can live freely and practice the religion freely. It was impossible under the majority Hindu state or Hindu population of that time in the joint India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Commodore, your response?
First of all, I, would like to acknowledge and welcome General Muhammad's characterization about Hinduism as a religion. But related to that, I just want to digress a little bit from the question that you have given us and say that in terms of history and recalling the origins of India and Pakistan, very briefly, I want to put this to rest. The Muslims who at that time chose to stay in India, it was of their own free will. So I think we should bury this suggestion that they were being suppressed, oppressed, and were forced to stay in India and could not flee to Pakistan, which is the reduction that I have taken from your remarks, sir. And all of those Muslim citizens at that time who stayed back are very proud Indians first. So I think this is something I'd like to reiterate, that all citizens of India are Indians first, and the religious denomination comes later. So any suggestion that this is about minorities being oppressed, suppressed is counterfactual. That having been said, as far as the question of support to terror groups is concerned, very briefly again, I am an Indian analyst. Okay, my view would be that of an Indian. But in terms of Pakistan and its continuing support to terrorism, I use the word continuing deliberately, I would invite your audience, as and when those who watch this show, to read perhaps authors and academics who have spent a lot of time on this particular subject. And specifically, I would say there's Adrian Levy, who's an author, very acclaimed. He's written about Pakistan and terrorism. There's Professor Christine Fair in the United States, who's an acknowledged name. There are Pakistani authors, if I may say so, who have drawn attention to this, even in the domestic debates of Pakistan, cautioning the Pakistani military that they should wean themselves away from this poison of such terrorism. General Musharraf, when he was in the chair, was aware of this. So this is not a time for me to score any debating points with my Pakistani counterpart after Pahalgam, but to say that within India, in a very large part of the region and the world, those who follow South Asia are concerned about Pakistan's support to terror groups. Is the state in control or not in control? I don't want to make any black and white answer because yes, Pakistan is facing serious internal problems, particularly in relation to Afghanistan, Balochistan, and domestic issues. Have they happened because the state and the military in particular had been nurturing groups in the past? I'll leave that as a question mark for now. But I think there is concern that the deep state in Pakistan could do better.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, your response?
Thank you so much, Ms. Jess. First of all, about the Muslims in India, you know it already. There has been an amendment in the Citizenship Act which actually bars multiple Muslims to become the citizens of India, actually. What is happening to Muslims in Indian occupied, illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is well known. What has happened in the mainland India, lynching of the Muslims, parading the girls new naked because they are Muslims, or eating beef and all that. I think these are the acts which actually indicate that life for the Muslims in India presently is not that conducive as it is being projected. Thank you.
Sir, with due respect, I
Thank you,
must make
sir.
a brief intervention to say that no women have been paraded in the manner that has just been stated, but it's not a subject that we want to address,
Sir.
so I just want to say this is counterfactual.
Understood, sir. You have the next question. Round 6. Global optics. Who is winning? Has India successfully framed this as a counter-terror operation, or is Pakistan making gains in the international narrative? Commodore, you first.
My interpretation is that India is not seeking to win anything or score any brownie points. Pahalgam has been a terrible incident for India in terms of the nature of the violence. And I think India is only sensitizing the global community about the kind of challenge it is dealing with. And my reading as an analyst again is that the initial response within the first few hours, accounting for time differences across the world, every country, every major nation that has responded has condoned this deplorable attack. They've used different phrases to convey, number one, the condemnation of the incident, number two, reaching out to India and to the victims. And for me as an analyst again, I was very struck by the fact that even the Taliban leadership has reached out and condemned this particular incident. So to that extent, I think almost like what happened immediately after 9/11 or any major terror attack in the world of this type, global condemnation has been almost universal and across the board. And at this point in time, I think what India is again seeking to convey is that it will deal with this issue, with the challenge, in a calibrated and resolute manner. My sense is that India has already informed, apprised all its partners and the global community about details that may not necessarily be in the public domain, and also conveyed what it proposes to do in terms of dealing with this issue. As you are aware, Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly raised this issue in the United Nations, in other fora such as BRICS, such as SCO and elsewhere, cautioning the global community that today's is India, but left unchecked, and if the kind of support that is being given to such terror is not identified, quarantined, and nipped in the appropriate manner, there would be a very heavy price to pay. So in that sense, I do not see this as India trying to either win any brownie points or score any gains over Pakistan in the international or the global arena, but to sensitize all its interlocutors about the gravity of the challenge and suggest that there is a way ahead, which is a combination of resolve and also a fair amount of transparency about the way in which these groups are being allowed to operate, either with a tacit nod or with active support. And Pakistan's own strategic community is aware of this in great detail, given their own experience with this since the late 1980s.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, your response.
Thank you so much for your question. First of all, who wins and who does not win? I think it is one of the media campaign. It is one of those people who have started blaming Pakistan on the fifth minute of the incidents. How can it happen that in 5 minutes a country can actually track back the things and blame another country for all these incidents? I think right after the 5 minutes, the Indian media started off blaming Pakistan, social media, Twitter accounts, and all that. And similar kinds of tweets were coming here and there and on X also. So this is one thing which is very, very astonishing, that right within 4 or 5 minutes, how can you blame another country? Who has won it? The It is the time which is going to tell. As I gave you examples, I can give you facts and figures. They are with me from the dates and times that all such incidents ultimately proved back and actually went back to India and within Indian country, within the country of India. Pakistan has expressed its sympathy and condemned the terror attack. We are not for it because we are suffering, as I said earlier, from terrorism ourselves for past more than 40 years. And still, we are having the incidents of terrorism in Pakistan. I gave you example of the train Jafar Express hijacking, killing of the people. I gave you example of the terrorist attacks being perpetrated from a neighboring country with the support of the other people. It's a proxy war which is going on in Pakistan, against China, also against CPEC. CPEC and Chinese are being targeted specifically because they want that China should get out of Pakistan and should not help in reviving the economy of Pakistan under the banner of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So it has been kindly quite affected. Uh, how is it possible that people from 400 kilometers come into an area, mountainous area, and conduct this attack, and they are not checked or they are not seen, whereas the India has 700,000 to 900,000 law enforcement agencies there. One of the terrorists, so-called terrorists shown, had the polished boots and very good clothes wearing. Similarly, on social media, we see an officer who and his wife had been declared dead. They are on the social media and saying, no, we are not dead, we are happy and we are alive. So as I said earlier, it was very well choreographed, and right after 5 minutes, they started blaming Pakistan, and one by one, they started taking different steps. World needs to see it. World needs to link it with the history also. Thank you.
Commodore, your response?
My very brief response is that I think this reference to social media and the media perhaps is not very valid or substantive at this point, because as far as the government of India is concerned, there was a meeting that was convened by Prime Minister Modi. The Cabinet Committee on Security had met and they deliberated on this very carefully with all the inputs that the security and intelligence agencies were able to provide. And it is after that that the determination was arrived at. So that's the first observation. The second is, since General Muhammad has spoken about the CPEC, I just want to again share my observation about what is happening currently in Balochistan. And yes, it is true that we have also seen reports about Chinese citizens in Pakistan, whether they are engineers or otherwise, being targeted. And perhaps that has more to do with the Pakistani military and the way in which they have been dealing with the province of Balochistan and the Baloch aspirations over the decades. So I think these are not interlinked, is what I would say at this point in time.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, a question for you. Nuclear peace or nuclear illusion? Will both nations, armed and tense, is the nuclear deterrent holding firm, or are we one misstep away from a disaster?
Thank you so much, Jess.
Sir?
Yes. First of all, about the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, it is an emancipatory act. It is going to bring lots of development, socio-economic development in Balochistan. It is going to bring jobs. It is going to bring prosperity for the Baloch people. And why should they be targeting Chinese, number one? Number two, as far as Balochistan is concerned, it is still, and right from the beginning, it is being ruled by the Baloch people, by the Baloch leader, Baloch tribal leaders, and it is given sufficient funding from the main government, and it produces a lot of funds themselves. There are some people who are unhappy. Yes, it is very normal that every country cannot have all the people happy and satisfied. They are being exploited by the exploiters. Pakistan is taking measures to actually wean them away. from the militancy or negativity. Coming over to the nuclear deterrence, I think I have been studying the nuclear since long. I've done my PhD. It is on the CPAC, so that is I can talk a lot about CPAC. I have done my master's in philosophy on the Afghanistan and drawdown of forces from Afghanistan. In CPAC also, I linked Afghanistan and Pakistan together. So when it comes to the nuclear deterrence, I've studied a lot on the nuclear. So nuclear weapons are not the war-fighting weapons. I must clarify this. This is my understanding. They are actually war aversion, war avoiding, or war stopping weapons. And the nuclear deterrence has worked between Pakistan and India since 1998, when following the Indian nuclear experiments, second time nuclear experiment, Pakistan also conducted its nuclear tests. So it is holding on, and I do not foresee a nuclear war between Pakistan and India, or a war which could pull the nuclear weapons into the operation. So it is going to hold on. What needs to be done is that while remaining within the same ambit, we should resolve the issues by talking to each other. Preconditions for talking are not at all, I think, workable. If you conditionalize the talks, then it is going to take perhaps more decades. They need to sit, they need to talk, resolve one by one the contentious issues. And we have very good example from the time of Mr. Musharraf, when he had been meeting the Indian leadership, the Prime Minister of India. They went to Agra, they went to Delhi and all that, and they were quite close to signing kind of accord on the resolution of the most contentious issue, that is Kashmir. I think that can still be revived. The negotiation or talks between both the countries can still be revived, and there is no war going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commodore, you're up next.
Yeah, on the nuclear issue, again, at the outset, I am, in a way, I'd like to acknowledge and say that I'm very glad to hear General Raza Muhammad make this point, that nuclear weapons are strategic and their role is really avoidance. And if anything, as some of us have argued in the past, they should go back to their core mission, which was what was enunciated by those who were studying nuclear strategy and theory, the academics and the analysts and the leadership at that time, which is that after the United States used the weapon on Hiroshima and the former Soviet Union acquired it, the core mission was defined as one where each side would deter the other from taking recourse to nuclear weapons, which I think is the equivalent of the tenets of nuclear strategy and deterrence. India and Pakistan, there is a lot of anxiety whenever there is any tension and the suggestion that this is a dangerous place and that there could be an escalation. So far, I think both countries have demonstrated that they are able to use their nuclear capabilities in a certain manner. Did we have a scare? Yes. 1999 in Kargil. If you remember, it's a long time ago. I don't know how many of the listeners on the show would even remember that there was a war in 1999 called the Kargil War. But at that time, I would say there were some intemperate references by Pakistan to the nuclear capability. And the United States at that time, led by President Clinton, had to step in and ensure that this was put back. From then to now, again, I'm repeating this, that so far the nuclear capability has not been invoked. They are not meant to address issues like terrorism or contested territoriality. But there's one observation I'd like to bring to the table here, and perhaps General Raza Muhammad would respond on this, which is that my observation as an analyst is that going back to the 1980s, the late 1980s, when Pakistan acquired the bomb in what we describe as a covert way, that Pakistan used its nascent nuclear weapon capability to engage in state-sponsored terrorism. At that time, I remember in the jargon, one had introduced the phrase called NWET, that is Nuclear Weapon Enabled Terror. And this was a great anxiety at that time for the United States and the major powers, and there was great concern that Iraq may be doing this. But the reality is, and again, there is chapter and verse that we have all contributed to, I think this misuse of the nuclear capability, that is the cause for great concern, and I hope as a regional, as a global community, we can address it.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, your response?
Thank you so much. As far as I am concerned, as I said earlier, they are not the weapons of war fighting or war winning. But of course, they are a security guarantee for a country like Pakistan, which is smaller in size and lesser capable when it comes to the conventional weapons which India has now or is amassing. And India is being helped by all the Western countries, including United States of America, in building up its military muscles, military capability. I want to add that all the military capabilities are not for China. China cannot actually be invaded with the mechanical vehicles and all that. Coming back to the originality, they are weapons for the security guarantee, and they are weapons for not fighting the war. But when it comes to the occasion, when Pakistan's nuclear threshold is breached, Pakistan is going to use it and will not hesitate. But I hope that it doesn't come to that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commodore, question for you. Quad or isolation? Should India now use the Quad and its global alliances to isolate Pakistan? Or does that push Pakistan deeper into China or Iran's camp?
My response is that the Quad is not relevant when we are talking about the India-Pakistan bilateral relationship, particularly after Pahalgam. The genesis of Quad and the way in which the Quad is now evolving is on a different frame of reference. And my sense again is that when US President Donald Trump visits India for the Quad summit, there would be a sense about which direction it is likely to take and what kind of a military contour or otherwise it would have. But I think if I could just use this opportunity, I think to make this larger point that you have identified, that will Pakistan go closer to China? And would that be a challenge for India? I think that is a concern or anxiety that has always existed for India, what we refer to as the two-front exigency. Because historically, yes, India has had a brief border war with China in October of 1962. More recently, we had an incident that we refer to as the Galwan incident, where India and China, the troops actually clashed with each other. They did not use ordnance, but there were a few deaths on both sides. And India's own experience with Pakistan, we've had 3 wars. We've had 47, 48 on Kashmir. We've had 65 and 71, and the brief Kargil war. So at each time, I think the concern that Pakistan and China may collude in a manner that would be adversarial as far as India is concerned is a matter of concern. But again, let me add that the more recent policy initiatives and whatever we have been able to pick up from Beijing in recent months seems to suggest that Beijing is also concerned about the issue of terrorism within Pakistan and the current, what I would call as discord and instability that is visible in Pakistan. It's not for us as outsiders, particularly Indians, to comment on the internal developments in Pakistan. But it is a fact, again empirically, that the Pakistani military has become the most dominant player. And the fact that popular political leaders are now in prison or that the political class itself is on the back foot for a variety of reasons leads, I think, to this anxiety in India that the Pakistani military and its own priorities and whatever they may be receiving as support from China could pose a challenge for India in the long run.
Thank you, sir. Ambassador, your response?
Thank you so much, Miss. First of all, about using a Quad to isolate Pakistan. Uh, it's not only Quad. India has been using its relevance since many years, and trying to isolate Pakistan with various kinds of actions. And this is the Pahalgam is one of those incidents, which is a false flag operation, and India is trying to use it to isolate Pakistan. But I think India has not been successful in that. Second thing, most important is, as I said earlier, that India is very relevant to the strategic objectives of America and allies. So it is using that position very well for building up the military muscles and also the economic strength. Pakistan does not have any military alliance with any country, including China. Even in 1962 war, when there was a chance that Pakistan was militarily quite strong and could attack the held Kashmir to win it back,
Right.
Pakistan restrained under the international pressure that Pakistan will not participate in any war, and Pakistan will not create a two-front situation for India also. This is a world of complex interdependence. Deep coupling, which is being tried, I think it is not going to happen. You have seen the tariff wars. Ultimately, everything is going to get back to the normal and the things will be settled, the tariffs will be settled, because the complex interdependence in the world keeps all the nations connected with each other. When it comes to Galawan is also another example that before Galawan, India and China were trading around 90 plus billion dollars a year. They stopped the trade and recommenced. And now their trade touches $130 billion annually. So they are trading with each other very well. As far as the camp politics are concerned, Pakistan has clarified it that it will not join any camp, whether it is Chinese, Russian, American, or BRICS or whatever, whichever camp. Pakistan is willing to join the organization like BRICS, which are economic cooperation and other such things. But Pakistan is not at all for camp politics. And Pakistan, as far as China-Pakistan relations are concerned, it is a time-tested friend and does not blackmail Pakistan. It helps Pakistan. And presently, when Pakistan is not getting any military equipment, even if it wants to purchase from the West, China is the only country which is helping it. So, but rest assured, Pakistan and China are not going to get together and commence a war against India. This I can guarantee you. In my lifetime, at least, it is not going to happen, and perhaps not in next 50 or 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commodore, your response?
My brief response, I just picked up one particular observation made by General Raza Muhammad, and I hope that he is prescient and that he would be proved correct when he said that he hopes that he expects that the tariffs will be resolved satisfactorily. Because though it is an aside in terms of the India-Pakistan, I think that is something I hope it does come true. But on the larger issue, I think as far as Pakistan is concerned and its relationship with China, I think the Indian position on this has been very consistent, that as long as any kind of engagement or cooperation between China and Pakistan does not adversely impact India, then there is no concern. But I just again want to remind your audience, if I may, that listen, China is a country that covertly enabled Pakistan to get a nuclear weapon during the Cold War in the late 1980s. Now, what does that say? So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, sir. And then final question, Ambassador, for you first. Path forward. You're advising the National Security Council tonight for your respective countries. What's the next move? Deterrence, de-escalation, or dominance?
First of all, when it comes to the reactions, and if I have to advise the National Security Council, it is going to be the principles of reciprocity, what is dominant in the diplomacy. So whatever India is doing, Pakistan should also respond to that, because India has initiated, Pakistan has not initiated, whether it is the holding in abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty or the downgradation of the diplomatic missions or closing the borders between Pakistan and India and cancelling the visas which had already been issued to Pakistani even under the SARC agreement. So Pakistan has to reciprocate in the manner India is doing it, number one. Number two, when it comes to dominance or deterrence, I think deterrence is the best option. Pakistan is not a country which is looking forward to war or which is looking forward to creating troubles in other countries. It has sufficient troubles within it, and it has to actually resolve those issues. When the Commodore Uday referred to the political situation in Pakistan, it is not only in Pakistan, multiple countries have been having issues with the politics and political polarization. Now, there are two majority parties which are ruling. Yes, he is right that there are issues. I am sure that they are going to be resolved after the courts have given their decision. And I think the country's political and military and judicial and bureaucratic leadership and people of Pakistan are going to be together. But as far as this incident is concerned, you must have seen it. It is whole of a nation approach. All the country is united regardless of their political, religious or other affiliations. All the country is united. Coming back to the original question, Pakistan is not looking forward to war. When it comes to the escalation and dominating the escalation ladder, yes, if India escalates from here, Pakistan will respond and respond perhaps much more than what is happening. And you people have seen it when it came to Pulwama and the exchange of aerial attacks. They conducted an attack in Balakot's jungles. Pakistan also then responded, and Pakistan was able to down their two aircrafts, and a pilot was also captured, who was handed over back very respectively to Indian government, just to give a good message that Pakistan is a responsible country. But when it comes to retaliation, if it happens, if any adventurism happens, Pakistan is going to respond very strongly. But we are not looking forward to war. Nuclear deterrence should hold, and there should be no war between Pakistan and India or with any country or any neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Come on, Commodore, you're up.
My response is that, first of all, again, I think what General Raza Muhammad has said about the Pulwama Balakot, I think one should acknowledge that as far as the Pakistani response at that time was concerned, that it was restrained. And yes, the Indian pilot was returned, and I think there was a circle closure. But India had sent its own message of resolve at that point in time. When you say specifically what would be my advice at this point in time to the apex, in terms of the national security deliberations in India, you use the word deterrence. And I think I'd like to slightly nuance that and say that let the nuclear deterrence remain where it ought to be, and that India will calibrate and convey its own response in the manner that it has done till now. But in terms of the conceptual approach for the political leadership in India, or how we should be looking at this, as an analyst, I'd like to introduce two other terms, if I may. One is that India should use whatever capabilities it has, whatever support it has in the global community, diplomatically, politically, to try and ensure a certain degree of compliance from Pakistan in terms of the support that is being extended to terror groups, and how the Pakistani state, the Pakistani military, there are many organs, of course, in Pakistan, but the military in particular, how they would position themselves. And Pakistan's military has considerable experience, as any observer would testify, in terms of dealing with terror groups. So to ensure a degree of compliance, to sever the support and links to the terror groups, and for that, India perhaps should be looking at certain leverages of compellence. So this compellence is a word we borrow from the nuclear kind of discourse. But can compellence be brought into play by using other levers? And I'd add the word persuasion. We should be able to persuade the Pakistani leadership at this point, those who have the ability, that it would be in Pakistan's own interest, as also the extended region, to put an end to this kind of an ideology, to this kind of a fervor, and there is tangible material support that the Pakistani, it's a phrase I use carefully, the deep state, the military, in terms of what they are doing. And I think this combination of resolve, also restraint, to ensure a certain degree of compliance through an empathetic use of compellence would be the way ahead, and the professionals would be able to interpret this in a manner that would be appropriate to the current post-Pahalgam situation.
Thank you, sir. Final words, Ambassador?
Thank you so much. As far as the compellence is concerned, it is not going to work, I assure you. Number two, as far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan has never blamed any country without proofs. We have Kulbhushan Yadav, a serving wing commander of, a serving military officer of India, still in Pakistan, who has been kind of disowned, and India is not trying to pursue his case. But it was proven that he was running a network of terrorists and terrorism in Balochistan and conducting various kind of terrorist activities in Balochistan. Similarly, Pakistan has given multiple proofs of terrorism being conducted from other countries and Afghanistan, and with whose support there are proper proofs of money being transferred from other countries, even from India, from other international countries. Pakistan has never blamed any country for this. I'll go back to again the same thing. Let's talk. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is a wrap for our debate club this week.
Thank
we
you.
had one issue, two very volatile topics, and a very interesting conversation. So massive thanks to Commodore and Ambassador for their clarity, composure, and candor in a moment when emotions definitely are running high.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jess. Thank you, Commodore Uday. And thank you, the producer of the program. I'm delighted that I was called and heard. Thank you.